Welcome back to Financial Independence 101. This is Mike. Today we'll talk to you about going to a cashless society and how governments are trying to transition to cashless, eliminate cash from the equation so that they can have more control, more oversight, and eliminate your privacy, eliminate freedoms. But we'll talk about all of this, the bad, and the tiny little bit of good the government's gained from it. Although going cashless has so many drawbacks and is really bad for the freedom, privacy, and the ability to conduct business for individual citizens, it wouldn't be hard to transition over because so many people have already bought into the fact that they do 90% of their transactions digitally. Going cashless wouldn't be a problem for them until of course it is. I'm going to talk about some countries that have already tried to put out a cashless initiative and failed. And then I'm also going to talk about how our own federal government would have had to shut down certain branches simply because they couldn't process credit cards if cash wasn't around. And yes, Federal Reserve is still trying to roll out a CBDC, a central bank digital currency, which is the first step to going cashless. Let's talk about this and more coming up. All right, let's quickly get into talking about the drawbacks of a cashless society, and it would be less privacy, greater exposure to hacking, which if you've got your money, your cash is in your pocket, or you've got it at the house, or you're able to hold it, because if you don't hold it, you don't own it, then if you get hacked, maybe you'll get your money back, but you'll be without that for months, possibly, in some scenarios. In some scenarios, you never get it back at all. Technological dependency, so when the power's out, electricity's out, and all of that, then you wouldn't be able to conduct business. But, hey, if you got a $20 bill, you can go exchange $20 bill for good and service. Magnifying economic inequality, excluding the unbanked, mostly poor persons. Few purchases and sales would be anonymous. Increased risks for cyber attacks and financial loss from identity theft, and millions of people potentially left out of the economy because of this. First thing I want to talk about is privacy. And if you pay with cash, the government has no idea what you're spending your money on. You could go buy potato chips, or you can buy soda, or you can buy whatever you want to buy. You can buy vintage toys. When everything is digital, they know exactly what you're purchasing, for the most part. I mean, person to person, you can have somebody put in a code for something that they're selling you, and it not be what they're selling you. You can manipulate that, however, but it doesn't have to do with manipulation. It's privacy. Think about this. We could go into a world where you bought too many potato chips and you bought too much junk food and not enough healthy food, and so you don't get the type of insurance coverage that you should get. You get a lower level of insurance coverage, or things won't be covered because you didn't take care of yourself. You didn't live the right lifestyle. You didn't eat healthy. See, that's where this is going, and that's only one small aspect of it. But there's so much more that goes into losing your privacy, losing your freedom, when everything is digital. If you get your credit card bill, credit card companies already do this. They already allocate, you've spent so much in each category on food and on different categories. You can already find that information on your credit card. But credit card companies have been doing this for a long time. Now, I do want to say that they misallocate a lot of the spending. And so, like I say, technologically, we're not quite there yet with all of this stuff, but we're seeing the beginning of the end of privacy when it comes to going cashless. Now, when you hear pretty much anybody talking about finance, they say you should have an emergency fund. And then nowadays, with the banking crises that are going on, and how we've already had a bank fail, First Republic banks failed already this year, 300 more on the chopping block that could be failing by the end of the year, up to 1,000 banks. But again, there's no specifics on which bank, and we just don't know all of this. And we know is tied to the high interest rates. But if you hold it and you have your cash, you can't lose it. You will be losing, though, the purchasing power on it due to inflation. We've seen inflation go through the roof, but it's kind of a counterbalance. Do you want to get that sweet 5% in the bank right now safely, for the most part, still FDIC insured under $250,000? You want to also insure your interest, so $246,000. But you want to balance that with the cyber crime that's out there. People can hack your bank account. They can hack pretty much any aspect of your life. And at minimum, it's a nuisance for a couple months. At maximum, you can lose it forever. But if you stuff everything under the mattress, you miss out on this wonderful interest rate, which is probably going to be the highest rates that we see for a while. when they start lowering them, they're going to try to go back to zero again. I know they're going to eventually try to go back to zero again. We won't see this again for a while, these rates, because government really can't afford to have rates this high forever. But you have to counterbalance security with getting some sort of interest and not losing all of your purchase power. I like to keep enough cash on hand to pay bills for a couple of months in case there's an emergency or something crazy happens. And also, if there's something I want to buy with cash, I can usually get a much better deal if I buy something with cash. So that's another transition into when you buy stuff with cash. A lot of people give you a better deal than having to go through PayPal or Venmo or Cash App or any of these other ways to pay for things that I find I get at least a 10, 15, sometimes 20% better deal when I deal with cash. And that's across the board, pretty much with everybody I interact with. And I don't do a lot of cash transactions myself, but when I do, it's nice to get a better deal. Next thing I want to talk about is, let's say you have a garage sale and you are selling a bunch of stuff for 25 cents, quarter, dollar, $5. Most of the time I see when I go to garage sales, I'm buying stuff for 10 cents on the dollar. So if something costs $100 from $10 max at a garage sale for their item, it's a $100 item, maybe I flex and go to 20 on something like a really good yard tool. Tools sell really well, really high. But you know, you look at a lot of the time used, worn out clothes and shoes, and you're not giving them even half the value. You're giving about 10% of the original sales price on this old, used, worn out stuff. Let's say you have $8,000 worth of stuff. You haven't had a garage sale in a while, and you sell $800. So you sell $8,000 worth of stuff for $800. And some people go, no, I'd probably get $2,000 for it. Okay, you sold it for $2,000. Now, in a cashless society, you're adding up your quarters and dollars, and maybe if you're lucky, you get a 20 in there somewhere. And you add all that up, and that's your money that you make. Most people aren't going to claim that as income because it's not. It's actually a loss. 90% of garage sales, 99% of garage sales, people are losing money on it because they paid way more for the goods that they purchased new. And when you look at this, now you're going to have to deal with a digital society, a cashless society. You're going to be getting a 1099-K from the government. They've already put this bill in place in the Destruction of America bill, the Rescue America bill, that's Destruction of America bill. And $600, you now are going to get a tax form, and you're going to have to show receipts on what you paid for all this stuff. And can you declare it as a loss? Can you go, oh, every time I have a garage sale, can I declare that I had at least a $7,000 loss? No, you can't. It doesn't work both ways, but you'll have to claim it as income and then show receipts, what you paid for it, so that you wouldn't have to pay taxes. It's a sticky situation. It's where we're at. But again, loss of freedom and privacy. Let's get into some of these examples here. Italy cancels controversial cashless campaign. Italy's government has ended a much maligned scheme aimed at encouraging cashless payments over concerns around its cost, fairness, and abuse of the system. Here's the thing. They've already tried this back in 2020 through 2022, and it didn't work. Here's how they did it. They went to a grocery store. So there was a grocery store in Italy that tried to go cashless. And there were a lot of the businesses trying to go cashless. And there would be about 20 shoppers would go in there. They would fill their baskets up with stuff. Then they'd go to check out. They'd say, no, we don't accept your cash. They'd have cash in hand, intending to buy the product, and then say, well, that's all I've got. And so they leave. 25 people doing that. After 2 weeks of different people doing that over and over and over, that business decided to go back to accepting cash again. So that is definitely a way to push back against this cashless society. When businesses try to switch over, push back. There's also a Kohl's Liquor. So I don't even know anything about Kohl's Liquor, but I think the same thing happened there. They tried to go cashless, so they're attempting to go cashless, and it's impacting their business. It's industry-wide challenges. But this is just another example of how they try to go cashless, and it's not going to work for this Kohl's Liquor either. But I think the worst country that has tried to implement this is in Australia. We've seen it in Australia where banks are trying to go cashless. They are trying to end cash. And here's what I gotta say. The same thing needs to happen there. For the first bank to go saying, hey, we're going completely cashless. We're not going to give you your cash. We're not going to accept cash. We're not going to accept checks and money orders and all this weird stuff that's going on. Then I would personally, if I had an account with them, I would close it and go to another bank And if you see every bank that tries to go cashless go under, then guess what? No other banks are going to want to attempt that. And that's where it is. If the entire population disapproves of going cashless, then the government can't go cashless. So this past week, I was at the post office and I saw this sign in the window. It was cash sales only, credit card, debit cards not working. And it's funny because right next to one of the signs, there was like 8 signs plastered all over the place. But this isn't the first time it's happened here. It's happened multiple times. And this is the post office, a federal building. They could not process these payments. Guess what? That's the same thing in a cashless society. You're going to see that all the time. Commerce completely shut down because they can't accept cash. And I've seen it. I've managed restaurants for 24 years. And there's a lot of times that we had to go with just cash transactions. And that's how we operated for the day. Or we'd have to close. And it's not just the restaurant business. It's not just the post office. It's every business when they run into a technological issue and they have to just only take cash for a brief period of time or days, then are they going to lose that revenue? Will the government lose the taxation on that revenue? Yes, yes, and yes. Now getting into the central bank digital currency. Now Jerome Powell has been questioned about this, and he's been semi-transparent about the fact that they are working on a central bank digital currency. And a lot of people might say, well, why do we need a central bank digital currency? Why can't we just be cashless the way we are now, where we have credit cards and we have bank transfers and we have debit cards and we have all this stuff going on? But the problem is, a bank technically is that you're not putting money in the bank. You're actually buying a debt. You're loaning the money is basically what's going on with a bank. When it comes to digital currency, it literally is currency. And it's sort of similar. It will be similar to that of Bitcoin and others, except this will be 100% controlled by the government. And again, they'll have access to pretty much everything that you purchased and all of your information, and know everything that you've bought and know everything that you've sold. And with that, it's a little different than Bitcoin, because Bitcoin isn't controlled by the government or the central bank. It's actually kind of a free on the blockchain, and I'm not an expert on what's going on with Bitcoin and all of those things. I don't really get involved in those digital currencies, and I believe that the fluctuation in those is just so wild and crazy. That's another thing with this CBDC, is you won't see the level of fluctuation in the currency like you do with those digital currencies. But anyhow, this is the first step to going cashless, so that you have a digital coin. And after this, I would imagine once this is up and running, they're going to start saying you have to this date to turn in cash, or else you won't be able to convert cash to digital, and it won't be you won't be able to spend it. It won't be accepted anywhere. But I could see going forward with this central bank digital currency as something that is still on the agenda that's trying to push here in the U.S. Why the governments want to do this? Well, they believe that they're going to crack down on crime. They believe that there's going to be less laundering of money. It's going to increase tax revenues. It's going to eliminate tax cheats and a lot of things that they see. I do not believe that they're going to see very much benefit when it comes to this. What they're going to see in large part is less commerce they're going to see, and more trade. There's going to be more barter system, and of course a massive pushback by not only citizens, but governors of states will push back against it. There's going to be pushback from Congress. At least half of Congress is going to push back. The red side of Congress is going to push back on this. The blue is going to want to go forward with taking people's freedoms. That's just the way it always is every time. But anyway, I want to know what you think about this. Are you in on a cashless society? Do you see the net negatives, the non-benefits to citizens, and the slight partial benefits to governments? I'm sure that you guys have a lot to say about this in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Financial Independence out.